Hey, I'm Junior Adesanya. I'm 26 years old, based in East London, and I run incense brand Cremate.
Hey Junior, thanks for joining us
Hi,
today.
no worries, thank you for having me.
Totally welcome. So maybe we can start off, tell me more about Cremate, what you do, maybe give us a little bit of an intro about yourself.
So Cremate, I guess, is a scent slash perfume incense brand. Like there's been loads of sort of different titles given to it, but essentially, yeah, I make incense as the core product. Started it 2.5 years ago.
Nice.
Just out of sort of a random passion project. Yeah, going pretty decent.
I
Can't
know,
complain.
No, I love it because I know when we hit each other up, it was like a mutual gravitation, being like, wait, your brand is super cool.
Yeah, no, literally, I think I was saying, did I message you at the same time?
I think literally at the same time when we were
Maybe
with
like a
like,
different
this
account,
is
and I
really
was like,
weird. Exactly.
But yeah, that's how the best things happen.
No, exactly. I completely agree. But no, exactly. I looked at your brand and I was like, one, it's super like such a cool and interesting sort of mishmash of tons of different influences. It looks like obviously you reference like the art world, the music world, the graphic design, and everything. But I think for us too, like we look to all these different influences too, and it kind of comes together in this like wacky way. And I love that this world of scent, fragrance can have a different spin or a new spin. But
I mean that's it. I'd always sort of, I guess my background career-wise had sat in fashion design for the most part, probably 8 years of my life, 8, 9. Makes me sound a lot older than I am.
Do the calculations out.
But so it was pretty much a continuation of that, and how do I take those sort of practicalities and design ideals and move them into something that's obviously not completely removed from the fashion world, but not really the first thing you sort of think of when you do think of fashion, and just design as a whole. And like you say, like I'd always had loads of sort of disparate interests that I could never fully let go of when I'm working on other things. So I always like to sort of slip little Easter eggs and bits and pieces into whatever I do as a continuation. But yeah,
I love it. And why incense? What's special about
again, it was like a really organic sort of path, I guess. It was I'd sort of grown up Catholic, excuse me, Roman Catholic. My mum was Roman Catholic, went to the church for a while. So you had like the priest or the churchman with the censer. I don't know if it was a priest exactly. But with the censer full of frankincense and then incense burning, and that was like the first point of contact. And then sort of getting a bit older, there was a piercing and crystal shop sort of where I'd grown up in South East London. And just to again give a bit more backstory, the school I went to was predominantly black, predominantly Christian, pretty God-fearing. People did a lot of things that wouldn't be considered God-fearing if you're into, if you believe in that, if you're into that. But there was this piercing shop that no one ever dared go into because it was like the ceiling was lined with like Chucky dolls, and had like pentagrams and all sorts. And me being me, I'd just go in there anyway.
I'm so intrigued.
And they were burning incense. They were burning like Nag Champa, and that was like, oh, okay, this sort of familiar smell again. But again, as a kid, you don't really pick up on it. And then the third time was probably when I started skating, and in skate shops, for the obvious reason of dudes smoking weed, they burn incense just to kind of cover up the smell. And then I think even past that, it just permeated skate culture anyway. So then it was at that point that I started just burning it to burn it. So I was like buying it at home, taking it home, burning it. My mum and my siblings weren't too pleased. Just because it was like, it was like really bad, like market in the sense that, if you're not in a well-ventilated room, it's the best thing to be burning. And then moved out Like this is probably now becoming quite recent, like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, cover up the smell of weed. Not in like a room with like all the windows closed and stuff. Is not a good idea. And then moved out and then started getting more and more into scent and as a sort of graduation of, you know, my interest in the creative sphere and design. Just like, you know, curation of space as well. Totally. So not just curation of like garments and outfits. It was curation of space. So then started buying sort of more, I guess, premium incense and like candles and stuff. So got more into like Kumba, Apothecary, you know, I think it's Hibiki that do the little scented matches.
Exactly the ones.
Yeah. So I got more into like that, but then obviously was spending a lot of money on that.
Exactly. It's all
And then
category. Yeah.
I had a space where, so I was working at a store doing social media marketing. Wasn't really the most riveting of jobs. I kind of felt myself at a bit of a lull. Like I guess between phases of my career, and I was up like really late all the time. Like I'd go to work, come home, probably have a quick nap, and then be up till like 6 a.m. And then sleep again for like another hour, and then get up, go to work. But when I was up, I was burning incense one night, and I was just, I wonder how you make this. So Googled it, found like a reasonable sort of way. Like it was on Google, Reddit, loads of random books that I had like found PDFs of. So I was like, okay, cool, this doesn't seem too taxing. I'd concepted a scent in my head. Amazing. So literally I didn't know what most of these smells actually smelled like, concepted the smell. Just to be like, from what I've read, this should make sense. No pun intended. That's probably
exactly. This happens all the time.
So then I'd ordered the materials for that. They came. I made it like a few days later, and it still is one of my main scents. It literally just hit perfect first time. I messed with the ratios. They weren't good. So it was literally that first scent had come out like me just being sort of like, let me just try this. And then to sort of further on the conception of Cremate, took them to work with me. Literally had like a handful of cones, like loose cones in my pocket. I was moving very wild these times. So we're burning them at work, and my colleagues were like, "This is crazy. What is this?" And you think friends just say stuff to say stuff.
Of course,
And then I started having customers come in and be like, "What's that smell like? What's burning?" I'd be like, "Oh, like this," and they're like, "Oh, like yeah, it's really good." And then my friends working at the Carhartt store in Shoreditch around the corner. So they were always buying Kumba anyway when they pay cash and burning it in the store. So they were like, "Oh, can we just take some of these?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." Like again, no sort of plans to like sell it or anything or make it into a business. There was no logo, there was no name. There was literally these like 10, 15 cones in my pocket. That was it. So I gave them probably like the rest of them. And then every day that week, I had at least one of their customers come to my store and just be like, "Are you the guy that makes the incense? Can I buy this incense?" And me to be like, "Oh well, no, I don't have anything." But then I think it was like the 5th, 6th person that had asked. I was essentially just like, "Look, give me a month. I'll brand it up. You'll have like your little tin." And that was it. And now it's at where it's at.
Honestly, it's such a beautiful story, and it makes me think back too on so many moments with Gabar and how it came to be. And I really believe this idea of these like nudges happening to you without you realizing, and like these little moments you look back and you're like, there are like 2 or 3 moments that are like monumental to you on this path to creating it. But somehow it just happened without you really forcing it. I think the most beautiful, like creative and interesting projects that come out in that way, right?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. You know, it's like, because like it's like it's the same way certain to get really sort of existential with it. Beautiful rivers and canyons and so on and so forth are made like, you know, it's like they're chipped away gradually. It's not, you know, you make something man-made and probably like another 2-3 years, you'll want to switch up that development again and again
For
and
sure.
again and again, as we see. But yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I love that.
That's how.
I love that. And no, I think it's interesting because like I get the same thing when people ask me like, how did Gabar come to be, or what was the impetus? And it's, my question is literally like, it just happened. It just happened is the feeling of it, where there was an idea in the head, and especially I think with scent, and I know we're talking a bit more about like scent and ritual, and scent is such an intuitive thing, I think, which I find like so interesting. And that like same with you, like for Gabar and the perfume formulations had very little sort of experience with any of that world, but intuitively felt I knew what could fit together really well. And like, and I don't know where that came from. I love smell. I've gravitated towards this mode of like aromatherapy, and for me like just like a fragrance, of course, and like candles and scent for so long, but it just naturally came together. And somehow when it fit together, it was like, oh, it smells really like what I wanted, like what I conceived. And I think that journey is so interesting. And like, I don't know, if you think about things like scent and ritual and like just scent in general and how it impacts you, like how would you kind of describe it? Or sounds so like core to who you are in a way, but also like
again, I feel like I used to sort of struggle with this question a lot, and I'd be like, so there's that whole thing of like, oh well, I was still quite in that space of, oh, it's just scent, it's just scent. But until I started obviously working with it, then it's like you can invoke any sort of mood, any, you know, you can. It's so influential. So I feel like, depending on the space, the place, the time, you know, even, you know, my own sense, like it can be a set scent, but depending on the context it's put in, it can do so many different things. But then again, also, you take from aromatherapy, like you were saying, because I had no knowledge prior to this of how to actually conceive scents, and that scared me a lot. But obviously did a lot of reading, a lot of research, and there are, you know, certain scents that are, I think for me it's always the nostalgia.
100%.
I've always got to tie it back to something I knew or I know. So, you know, like with, I guess, with Midway, for instance, like one of my main scents, there's like cinnamon in it and cedarwood, and it's very like warm and earthy and just homely. It's very homely, it's very calm, it's very, you know, so that gives me like, those connotations do ring true. Like, that is, it's a very sort of, I remember, the last event I DJ'd at was the first time I DJ'd outside in like 2 years. So I was obviously like, and it was there were probably like 100+ people in the room, like waiting for me to, you know, jump on and do whatever. And I was like, I don't really know how I'm feeling about this. And I remember that it had like my incense stick samples in my pocket and like a little carry burner. It looks like I purposefully had it on me to burn it there, but I was just like, literally, I know this scent, and this scent makes me feel comfortable, and I feel at home when I burn it. So I literally pulled it out, put it on the edge of the decks, put the stick in, lit it, and then no issue.
I love that.
No issue. I was like, so fine.
So interesting. No, 100%. Like what you said just now of like scent representing, or certain smells representing this idea of home is literally so, I think, like poignant and interesting. I think just because like, it's been such a funny journey, because even thinking about some like Gabar related stuff, like everyone has a different conception of what home smells like, and they have different, I guess, like different things that they're familiar with. But at the same time, this kind of feeling of home, even if it's your feeling of home, other people can still relate to it. Like I'm sure I smell what your sense is, and it still gives me the comfort and the grounding, even if it's not exactly my consent. So it's really interesting how you can translate that feeling or that comfort in smells. So it's not
this is it. It's crazy. It's like, you know, the connotations you can tie things to.
Totally.
And again, like when I make sense, my knowledge of actually putting things together, you know, like there are certain things that work with other things. There are certain things that shouldn't. There are certain things that complement. Certain things that X other things out. But I treat it how I used to treat visuals. And I was very like collagey and like, you know, okay, it's almost, I see it as like the cut and paste elements of things. Like, oh yeah, this, you know, those two sort of work there, so this might work with that a little bit, and that might X this out in a weird way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always like being able to tie imagery back to it.
Exactly.
And once you can tie imagery back to it, like you say, that idea of your home or a home may not be your idea of home, but you still know it's a home.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
that's what, yeah.
I love that. I love that. It's been, I really, really love this idea. And it's not something, it's funny, like, even though for Gabar, of course, like, similar to you, like, in a way, a lot of our sense, like, we're trying to map it back to our conceptions of home and, like, Myanmar, our, like, Southeast Asian heritage. But it was really interesting where I didn't realize this was something that we were doing until, like, way later in the process, where someone, like, turned to me one day and they were, like, helping me reflect on the fact that, for me anyway, I'd always grown up in all these different places, super unrooted in life, and, like, not having one place that, like, I grounded, especially as coming from an immigrant family, we left in New Zealand, and, like, then growing up, there are all these things that, like, I crave home in this very, like, visceral sense, and, like, mapping out these scents through Gabar and, like, thinking about home, but in this romanticized and kind of patchy way. It helped me re-access it. And it's kind of interesting how people can relate to that re-accessing in all these different ways, whether they're craving home in whatever sense. And like, I feel like that's how
100%. And even to come back to when I had, because that was so middleway is like, and it's called middleway because of, you know, the Buddhist teachings of not this way and not that way. It's
the middle way.
Keep it stagnant, not steady. And I never really, you know, at that point I had been living at home for, you know, 23 years of my life. Had been seeing, like, my mum every day, my brother and sister, and then it got to a point where it was like, okay, new job, you've got to leave home, you've got to, like, it's not like any of my friends are, you know, like, moving halfway across the world. It's like, move to a different side of the city, live by yourself now, do your own thing. Your mum's gone back to Nigeria. Like, it was really sort of, it did feel unsteady. And
for sure.
It was weird, like, I sort of took those teachings first and applied that to, obviously, the center of middle way, but it's still crazy how that can still be considered home. Like, you know, like, I can, 100%. Like, it was sort of that connection I just made of, you know, it was for one reason, but it's still very homely. It's still home to me. Like I said, it's almost like I've sort of pulled a piece of myself out. And been like, out myself and been like, okay, presented it to the world. And now have a weird affinity with that thing. You know, it's like this object. And like I said, I was in a situation where I was really anxious, and this thing made me super calm. So it is very, like, existential to think about it.
It really is. And it's like, this is what I tell people all the time, where, like, people maybe look at Cremate and it's like, sure, it's an incense. It's like, it can be, sure, superficially, it can just be an object, but its roots are so much deeper and it can represent so much more. So it's like, it's cool that there are all these layers. It can be this cool brand that has its, you know, surface, but also there's all this stuff.
This is it. And again, like you were saying earlier, you know, like, a lot of people do think it's like, like, super cool and edgy and the word trendy.
I know, I hate that word, but let's turn around.
No, but it's literally just me, you know. It's like, it's how, you know, I see the world and how I would, you know, interact with different experiences and situations. It's that all amalgamated into something that's digestible for everyone else, you know. So like you say, it can, on the surface it's a product, but it's a lot more than that. And, you know, Cremate is working towards, you know, almost becoming a platform as well, where the product takes a backseat. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
No, and I think, like, I love what you said about the product taking a backseat and this being a bigger thing, because I feel like there's this new era of companies and brands that I'm seeing that it's about something more, and it's
Yeah.
not. They're growing in a different way, where I feel like there was a wave of these like consumer companies that were so focused on growing big really fast, like whatever it takes, like splashing out ads. But there's a new wave, I feel like, that are being created by people like you who have all these like talents in all these different spaces, pulling on all these threads, but being so genuine and pouring your soul out into it.
Yeah.
And it creates something quite different. It's not just this product, it's like your whole ethos and your values getting poured into.
Yeah,
something.
100%. It's a lifestyle. I think
Totally.
a lot of it comes from, like we were saying earlier before we even started this chat,
Yeah.
like collaboration. This new wave of collaboration, which is it's insane. I remember collaboration before was such an interesting concept of like, that's strange. But now it's like everyone's seeking to collaborate, and it's great. And you know, this is what just deepens and deepens and deepens these stories, and like I said, all these connected points. You just make more and more and more until the web is just like insane.
100%.
So yeah, like I love it, and I love, you know, again, it comes back to this whole idea of stop trying to do everything yourself. You know, like
So true. So true.
you can't do everything, and you can't do everything to a crazy level. Like some people do things better than others because that's what they've chosen to pursue, you know, and then give props to those people and work with them. You know, don't try to always sort of be like, oh, I need to have everything my way, and I need to do this. I like what you do, but I need to do what you do. Just
No, I 100%
that person a
vouch for
shout.
that.
Like,
Exactly. And
yeah.
it's exactly what we were saying before, where it's like we're done with this era of treating collaboration and others like competition, where it's like, no, you can lift people up. Like the fact that you're right, that you can never. Everyone has their own strengths, and everyone has the fields that they're in. And if you can knit it all together, then it's so much more powerful.
Yeah,
and like
100%.
collaborations are the essence of that, where like you can work with others even if they're in the same world as you. Like you can work, you should work with others, and that's how everyone gets lifted. And I love that idea, and I sense that. Well, obviously that's happening with Cremate in all these different ways, but I would love one for Gabar to be that kind of brand where we're open and warm and like attracting these kinds of relationships in a very organic way, and it's not just like us in a silo building and we must be this certain thing, and like
this is it. But I mean, I already see it happen because, like I said, like I mean, you guys said you launched what a month ago.
We're still a baby.
Insane.
A month.
Insane. But I mean, look, you've got two scent brands sat here speaking to each other now.
Exactly.
Like I say, like you popped up in my network, like everywhere.
I'm glad something's working.
Yeah. So like, you know, like I say, like, from what I see, it's definitely on that trajectory to again just like, you know, add to the sphere and bring. I mean, you're already bringing something new to it. You know, like we were saying earlier, it's that whole idea of scent, and the scent industry is a very old, elitist, white,
So is.
you know, sphere. It is, and it's good to, you know, see people of color sort of coming along and shifting that, you know, like
100%.
just taking it out of that context, because, you know, it's a really interesting craft, it's a really interesting space, but it needs to be inclusive.
No, it 100% does. And it's interesting because especially in the fragrance world, the way it's being done, because it's so connected to sort of like extraction and nature and taking from nature, like the way it's being conceived has always been you take from Southeast Asia, wherever, bring it over and you recreate it, but it's done by a Western brand or a European brand or a white brand basically. But then to be able to reclaim that and be like, no, we will thoughtfully and ethically source, but we will spin it in our own way and bring it back out and kind of create that voice in that industry is so, I think, refreshing and needed. And it also opens up the pocket for people of color to relate to this category in a new way as well. Like,
see, that's the main thing, that's the main point I really like people of color relating to, because again, I come from inner city, southeast London, where there was a lot of, you know, there's a lot of issues with poverty, gang violence, all this sort of stuff. And it's, as I've gotten older and as sort of like I've been speaking to my friends that are still sort of in those circles and situations. Like mental health is a big thing in impoverished areas, and people don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. That's just not a narrative there. It's
Oh,
I don't feel okay, but that's just how life is. Cool. I'm gonna keep it moving until it gets too much.
Yeah.
It's insane, and it's crazy like how I sort of, you know, almost left that space and come into a space where so many people are sort of really familiar with it, and there's a lot more of an understanding. It isn't like a stigma, and it's like it's spoken about, it's treated, it's crazy. So I want to pour that into that space. Like I want, you know, people of colour to understand and realise, like, you know, there are holistic approaches that do help. Aromatherapy, you know, all these other sort of practices that are age old, and like you say again, come from our spaces anyway.
Exactly. Come from our spaces deep.
They've just obviously been pulled and then repackaged in a way where it's like, no, this is too too good for you. Like this doesn't, no, like so yeah, there are loads of like really cool sort of people I've started to like link up with, and like organizations I've started to look into that deal with that, like just wellness and good mental health for POCs.
Yeah. It's important. No, it's so important, and yeah, I so resonate with so much of what you said, because it's like these worlds of mental health, wellness, etc. Like it feels so for anyone and anything, like to kind of penetrate a world, you kind of have to see someone in that world that you feel like you can relate to, and there's a voice that represents you. Otherwise, it feels foreign, and you're gonna never like go there. So to have this and to have a brand that feels relatable and that speak to you in a different way, it's so important. And because things like mental health, self-improvement, self-personal development, like it should be for everyone, and it should be stuff that, obviously there are levels, right, where you have to care about your survivability first. There's like all these things, and then you get there, but it shouldn't be this like siloed thing either. That's like just
unattainable.
Unattainable. There are all these practices that are easy and affordable and inclusive, and I think it's important to like push that ethos out.
Yeah, for sure.
You can look after yourself in these ways.
100%. Yeah, like that's it. It's just you need to. I mean, you encapsulated it perfectly, because I remember I'd even had this conversation with someone that was sort of still with that space, probably like a year ago. And even down to like yoga and stuff. Like I don't really practice yoga. I'd like to, but I know that can help. That's helped a lot of friends. It's helped. You know, it's just one of these things of, you know, just doing something to get your mind in a certain space.
Exactly.
And it was that whole thing. What was the response? I don't want to quote, but it was like word for word. But it was like, oh no, it's like, you know, hippie. That's like hippie stuff. You know, like we don't do that. And I'm like, but we do.
Yeah.
Like it came from us. You know, it came from POC. So why are you so sort of against, you know, doing something as, you know, simple as, you know, a couple stretches in the morning or in the evening? But that's it. It's just because it's been packaged in such a way. It's like, that's not for me. I don't touch that. We don't look at that. It's sad, but we'll get there. We'll get there for sure.
We'll get there, and it's already happening, I feel like, and it's like, you know, already so many brands and new ways of seeing things are helping break down the barriers.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm like excited to see this like new wave happening.
Yeah. It's good.
Awesome, Junior. Well,